Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Sin.
Hi, Aesir.
Hi, Sin.
Hi, everyone. And welcome to the Snack Covenant, episode 275. And today, we're going to talk about Armored Core.
Yay!
Wait a minute. What is this? A portal is opening in my room.
Oh no.
I'm being sucked into another dimension.
Oh no! It looks like Sin's been sucked into a portal, possibly due to her overacting. To ensure you don't get sucked into any portals, you can check out Glocken's PyromancyAcademy.com for some truly epic pyromancy tomes. Link in the description.
What is Armored Core? Who is Armored Core? Did you know, we can actually be a bit professional here, even though Sin isn't around.
That's true.
From interviews I dug up about Kingsfield, when I was doing my Kingsfield videos, I had to research, interviews that were stored on forums 17 years ago, and those, forums were digging to articles that were published 10 years ago. It's, miraculous that I got anything at all. But something that stuck with me was that the original pitch for Kingsfield 1, the one we didn't get in the West, was little robots tunneling down, exploring tunnels.
Right.
And I think, well, that's Armored Core then.
Pretty much, yeah. Way, more I think than you realize because you haven't finished it yet, but, there's literally a termite nest full of giant termites in Armored Core, exactly like in Kingsfield. Although, weirdly, I don't think it's the same model. I think they actually made an entirely different PS1 giant termite to run in what is basically the same engine.
Yeah, they are. I've met some termites, or some bugs, but they don't look exactly the same.
No.
On it being the same engine. It's literally the same engine.
It is the same engine as Kingsfield, yeah.
This weird, slow-paced dungeon crawler engine can also be this hectic, super action-y mech game. It's insane.
Yeah, I wouldn't... It can also be a point-and-click adventure game with Echo Knight.
Oh. I didn't know that was a point-and-click adventure game.
It's not really it's a first-person adventure game, but it plays like a point-and-click one. It's sort of inventory management, collecting keys, just watching stories unfold. So yeah, the three PS1 games they did, well, series I mean, they're all the same engine, but they're three completely different genres.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we say series because there were three Armored Core games on PS1, but Armored Core 2 was a PS2 game. So this is the weird thing about discussing Armored Core is that there's if you look at it, okay, Armored Core went up to Armored Core 5. So you'd think, well, are there 5 games? No, there's 23. There's 23 Armored Core games because each sort of numbered entry will have a number of essentially be its own universe and have a number of spin-offs that will some of which will be complete games and some of which will basically be mission packs. So Armored Core on PS1 had 2 other PS1 games. One was called Project Phantasma, which was basically a sequel, but you imported your data from Armored Core 1 to kind of continue with that character and continue with that build. And it also had a system built in where, if you did that, if you didn't have Armored Core 1 data, you could basically start with what they would consider to be, sort of the amount of money and stuff you would have at the end of Armored Core 1 if you had played it. So it did function as a standalone thing. And there was another one called Master of Arena that was just versus. And did you get to any of the versus matches?
No.
No, okay, yeah.
I've battled some other mech guys. In arenas.
Yeah. There's a spin-off that's just that.
Huh.
It's just 1v1 or 2v2 fights.
How long does that last? Because I find the strength of the Armored Core that I'm playing, the first one, First of all, I'm genuinely shocked by how involved the missions are, because the framing for the missions, it's like just walls of text explaining like this corporation and this, like in this universe and this city and these terrorist cells, and it's like, whoa, this is really involved. And then sometimes mid-level I will get a message from somebody that's like, haha, I betrayed you, you scumbag. And I'm like, I'm locking the doors, and I'm stuck there going like, wait a minute, do I still get paid?
That actually comes up. There's some missions where, like, the briefing is a lie and you won't get paid. But yeah, all that text is, like, important. That actually matters. That factors into what's going on.
Yeah.
Something that struck me about Armored Core, going back to it as, like, because this is so disorganized. Let's start with where I actually started playing Armored Core.
Hi, Sin here. I'm stuck in another dimension, so I need someone to get a message to Sophie and Aesir. Could you please tell them to use the angelic outline? Otherwise, this whole Armored Core podcast is going to be super long and super disorganized and totally unbecoming of the Snack Covenant. Thank you. Back to the podcast.
Armored Core was the first From game I played. And it is actually the reason why we're here now. It's the reason why I got into the Souls games and then Bloodborne and everything else. Because I had played a shitload of Armored Core when I was in high school, and also the Armored Core 2 and 3 on the PS2. And what happened was, like, when I basically got back into playing games, because I basically didn't play anything released on the PS3 until the very end of its lifespan, and I picked up the PS3 and I noticed that there was this game by FromSoftware called Demon's Souls that was on the download thing, and I thought, oh, I remember them from Armored Core, and I played that, and that's, you know, how we sort of got where we are now. But yeah, Armored Core back in the late 90s, which some people listening may not remember.
I remember.
Video game magazines, which existed, they were a thing. You go down to the shop and buy a magazine. They had these cover-mounted CDs that would have demos on them. And, yeah, so the PlayStation magazine that I read when I was a teenager in the late 90s, it, like, every issue would come with a little CD, and on the CD would have, like, the demos of the games that were coming out that month. And, one of them was the demo for Armored Core. And it was, because it was a demo, it was the first 2 levels of Armored Core. So the first 2 missions. But it had fully integrated the Mech Customization system and the shop that you bought the parts, and I think it had most of the stuff you could buy. Like, it didn't gate off the parts in the demo, it just gated off the missions. And because it was a demo, they just let you play the same mission over and over again, because you could never progress. But you could play it and then just play it again and play it again and play it again and play it again. So I actually spent longer on that demo just grinding in the first mission over and over and over again to get money to buy more mech parts than I did, like, playing most actual full retail games, because I just became obsessed with, like, building these robots. And that is kind of... that's Armored Core. Like, that's the appeal of it, I think, to most people, is that it has this incredibly in-depth customization system that is, like, forcing you to take into account, like, the weight of everything you're sticking on the robot, how much power it is draining, how much, like, lift it has, how much, like, velocity it has, down
how
to, like,
much health
all
it
those...
has.
Yeah, like, if you look at it, you might think a lot of the numbers are just for show. Like, it's just, they're just trying to make, like, a mech-looking HUD with a bunch of numbers. All those numbers matter.
Yeah.
Every single time you see a number in Armored Core, it matters. And, like, it's really in-depth, and at the same time, like, it really rewards you understanding how it worked, because you become sort of obsessed with, like, how much can I squeeze out of this? Like, what is like an obvious trade-off that the game throws at you is weight. Like heavy weapons weigh more. It's like armor in Dark Souls, weapons in Dark Souls. The bigger something is, the more it weighs. So it's like I can only carry this amount, but like how much I can carry is actually based on how stable my legs are, rather than like an endurance stat. So it becomes like, okay, if you want to have like just a really heavily armed thing, you can just get some tank treads, which have effectively can carry anything because it's a tank tread. Those are unlocked from the beginning, by the way. Like you can just buy tank treads and you never have to worry about weight again from the very start of the game. And I can just stick whatever the hell I want on those tank treads. But if I sit down and I really, really like plan everything, I can figure out a way to maybe stick the same weapons on something that's faster, like on a hovercraft.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, I can figure out like there are weapons in it that will drain your like boost bar instead of like using solid ammunition. And then it becomes like, well, can I do a build that is based on like having a very, very powerful like generator that can boost a lot but also not boosting, and just putting that all into ammunition use. Like there's so much you can do with it. And on top of that, like just the aesthetic customization of the mech is massive. Like you can actually set the individual RGB values of every single part of it. And you can apply textures, and you can go in with a little like Microsoft Paint interface and draw your own logo, and that will actually appear in game on the like on the shoulder of the mech.
Yeah,
it reminds me of like something Miyazaki said about like the way he wanted weapon upgrades to work in Souls. Is that like he wanted you to get very attached to a weapon, and it would become like your thing, and you'd carry it around with you everywhere, and like you'd work on it, you'd upgrade it, and you'd feel like an attachment to the weapon. Armored Core is like that to this enormous extreme. Like you watch that robot just evolve over time until like you become very, very attached to how it ends up, and like because you can start like there's no starting class in this game. Like you always start with the same build.
Yeah, that's sort of like just the most generic, just you have a turret gun, machine gun, and like...
Yeah. But very, very quickly, like, that can evolve into, like, a four-legged hovercraft with no arms. Or, like, just a tank that is covered in, like, Gatling guns. Like, there's so much you can do in it. And that's actually why, like, I've been reticent to stream it. Because, to me at least, like, 3/4 of the gameplay is just in a garage. Watching a bunch of numbers change, and I don't think that's very interesting to watch. But also, if you don't do that, it's like, well, why... You don't actually get why the game sort of gets its hooks into you, because it just seems like a weird action game, but yeah.
It's like the old Rainbow Six games, where you spend 2/3 of your time just planning the mission, and then you just go in, and it's very easy if you actually plan it, and like you're logical about which corner everyone should cover.
Yeah.
Something about how expansive the customizations in Armored Core are. My current build is like the zippiest laser guy you could possibly be. I have the lightest legs. I have the lightest build I can possibly have, and it's. Because you pointed something out to me, which is that, and I guess we should talk about how payments work. So you get paid for doing missions. Sometimes there are penalties for destroying things you shouldn't destroy. Sometimes there's a bonus for killing X amounts of enemies in a given time or whatever. But you have to actually pay out of pocket for ammunition, and if your mech gets damaged, which it always will, you have to pay for that. So... While I'm in the zone trying to kill all these guys, I'm also there like, ooh, I'll wait. I don't want to shoot them right away. I'll try to save some money.
Yeah.
But energy weapons, they don't cost ammunition, so you'll make money faster that way.
Yeah. They have a limited number of shots they can make, but it also doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
So like, I was talking about like, as someone who's played this a lot, my default means of starting is like to basically sell off everything I don't absolutely need and just buy a laser rifle, and then very, very slowly and methodically just do the first few missions, because that way there is no cost to me and I become massively wealthy very quickly. But if you grab like a Gatling gun that has I think it's 250 rounds in it, and you just spray that thing, you could end up in the red by the end of the mission, even if you succeed, because you're going to have to pay for all those bullets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. So the world it takes place in, it's like this. It's your generic government corporations get into bed together and ruin the future kind of cyberpunk universe.
It's underground. I think that's important to stress, because I mean, it's a situation where, according to the story, everything we're doing is actually underground, and I think is why the draw distance is so low. I think it's a little justification for that. There's tiny little bits that are on the surface, but the majority of the game is set. It's set underground, and the reason that's important is sort of the revitalization of the surface plays into not just the story of one, but the story of the whole series, essentially.
Yeah. And not only in the mission briefs do you get a sense of this being a really fleshed out world, there's surprising level variety. I was kind of blown away when during one mission I was just plopped on top of this aircraft, and there was nothing, just a 1,000,000-meter drop to the floor again, and I was just supposed to defend it from some drones or whatever.
Yeah.
There was one where I'm in this giant furnace, which, again, no floor, and I just have to sort of walk on these beams and these pipes to destroy the enemies. And I find that's really fascinating. There's also segments which take place in these giant just box rooms with these skyscrapers. And it's
those are the underground cities.
Yeah, it's how terrible must it be living in this universe?
Did you get to the bit where you had to kill the people taking the train home?
No, I don't. What?
Oh, okay. Let's talk about how everyone in Armored Core is awful.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons Armored Core stuck out to me when this came out is it was around the same time as Final Fantasy VII, and they both have that cyberpunk corporate crapsack dystopian future going on. But the thing about this is not a criticism of 7 just because they're very different kinds of story, but 7 is okay. You're a mercenary and you're working I don't care, I just want my money, and there's no morality to what I'm doing, blah blah blah. But then it ends up very fortuitously that the people you're working for are eco-terrorists, and sort of everything you do is ultimately it's sort of retroactively justified, that you blew up all these buildings and stuff because the people you're fighting against are actually just evil, and the people you're working for have good intentions. And I know the remake changes, I'm talking about the original. And the thing about Armored Core is the first 2 missions you get, you have a choice of either being a strike breaker and literally just killing a bunch of guys who are striking for better pay, or you can go and find a bunch of people who are living in a disused warehouse that is not being used for anything and just kill them because it's not their property. Those are the 2 choices, and you have no option but to participate in this if you're playing it. There's no good. You cannot be nice in this. And the longer it goes on, the more it just becomes you are just doing. It is all about money. Nothing else matters. The thing about Armored Core is it has a number of paths in it, and that's not immediately obvious, because there's not set sort of make the decision of what the choice is. It's not like BioShock where it's very obviously okay, this is the thing that matters.
It's more like Silent Hill 2, where they kind of hide it under the seams.
Yeah, I don't even know how it works, but it's basically keeping track of all these warring corporations. It sort of keeps track of who you did good things for, and you sort of tip the balance in one direction or the other based on your actions. But the amount of missions in it that are some variation of you're just murdering people, because of someone's bottom line. Like, there's no, you're not doing this for, like, it's not like, oh, this is something terrible, but it has to happen. It's literally, like, one of them is, I want you to stage an industrial accident in which, a large portion of my workforce is killed. Because if you do that, I don't have to pay them severance. It's like, I'm gonna fire these people, I don't want to pay severance, but if they die, it's not my fault. So it's like, can you blow up the train that they're on? And that's a mission. And, like, there's another one that's like, there's this, the wording of, like, I mentioned before, like, the killing of people, like, you're just killing homeless people in one of the missions. Mm-hmm. But this is, like, it's a very rare, very good, I think, like, translation. Because, and this may actually just be, like, because they were doing it in the most straightforward way possible, but, like, the way it is written is so, like, corporate speak. Mm-hmm. Like, no one is melodramatic in this. Like, when you have to kill the homeless people, it just calls them, like, they are, like, it calls them regressives opposed to urban development. Which is exactly the language that's used to, like, destroy homeless communities in real life. And, like, I actually have it, like, I have a long play running on my other monitor right now, and, like, I know what the missions are because I've done them so many times. The one I'm looking at now is, like, you are hired to, like, buy the corporation that own a city to destroy parts of the city. Because if you do that, everyone will get so frightened they will allow for greater police presence. It's all like this.
Yeah. Like you said, it's such corporate speak. There's no, like... Yeah. There's no, like, ring around it.
Yeah. There's no villain, which is really interesting.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. We have this useless... at least it seems useless. I'm only, like, halfway or something through the game. It seems useless at this point. In the menu, we have a ranking system where we can kind of compare ourselves to other pilots. And it's like, wow, that's like, because you want to get up higher so that you can get the better jobs. But it's like, look at what this, you know, we live in a society. Look at what this society has done to you.
Yeah. No, and that ranking system's actually dynamic. Like, you could, those are if you pay attention to the names on that, those are characters you'll meet during missions. And if you kill them, they disappear from the ranking. And you rank up. Yeah.
I thought it was like Ratchet Gladiator, where it was totally scripted.
No. And it gets, like, they really expand on that in 2. Because 2 adds this, like, total arena system where on that ranking, if you're below someone, you can challenge the person that you're immediately below. Mm-hmm. And you can try to, like, usurp their rank, like, just in, like, a one-on-one fight. And so they add a ton of them, and it is all shit like, this person is fighting because their sibling has a terminal illness. And, if you beat them, like, their brother is just going to die from cancer, and it's like, gotta get paid. Sorry.
Wow.
It's so vile. But, like, something that I was touching on before is, like, there's no villain in this game. Which is another way of saying, like, and this is very, like, skewed, but it's correct. Like, the villain is the society in Armored Core. Because, like, I've talked about, like, the branching paths. So I'll go into a little more depth on that, how it works. So, like, in Armored Core, there's a bunch of different factions, but there's 2 big ones. Mm-hmm. There's 2 major factions called Chrome and Murakumo, and they're 2 big, like, cyberpunk corporations. And they are squabbling with each other. And what happens is, like, you can accept missions from either. And what it does, I think, this seems to be how it works. I've never actually, like, looked at the guts of it, but this is how it runs to me. Is that, the more missions you complete successfully for each one, it sort of tips the balance slightly in their favor. And then at the mid-game, there is a point where, like, it will tip in one way or the other. And either Chrome or Murakumo will win.
That's when that cutscene happens.
Yes, but
yes,
interestingly...
I just passed that in the game.
Yeah. That cutscene is the same regardless of the one that wins.
Oh.
Because the same shit happens. Because it's like, it literally just changes the name. It's like, okay, basically Chrome is the established one, Murakumo is the up-and-coming one. But it doesn't matter who actually wins, because the same thing happens. But, like, that's literally part of the story. That's the point it's making. Because it's like, either, like, if Chrome defeat Murakumo, then, like, another company just rises up to replace Murakumo. If Murakumo usurp Chrome, it's like, well, now there's a power vacuum, so this other company becomes the new rival to Murakumo. So it's actually the same video each time, there's just a different voiceover. And it always ends with, like, nothing has changed. And that becomes the thrust of, like, the second half of the story. Which is about, like, okay, this cannot continue. You're actually driving the world toward this point where it's like this system is no longer functional. And the end of the story is basically like, if we're going by like, because I mean, we have to sort of compare this to Dark Souls because it's a common point of comparison everyone will have. It's basically the like, fire is fading so you walk away from it ending. Where it's like, we don't know what happens next, but there is no way to sustain this. So the end of the... Like, can I just spoil the end of the game for you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, the end of the game, the mercenaries that you're... Oh, Christ, we haven't done... Okay, so we'll just like, explain who you... So your character in Armored Core is called Raven.
Yes.
And you're called that because you're part of a group called the Ravens. And the idea is, like, you are a completely neutral faction. It's actually similar to, I guess, Outer Heaven in Metal Gear Solid, where it's like, this is a group of people who are just soldiers, they're just mercenaries, they don't belong to a country, they don't have an allegiance.
No ideology,
there's no
fight.
ideology beyond fighting. And what happens is, like, the longer you go into the game, the more you realize that actually the Ravens are kind of... They do have an ideology which is to the status quo. Their goal is to maintain the world as it is. And what happens is...
That's also really like Metal Gear Solid. Where it's like, we have to create a world for soldiers.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like both. It's like they're Outer Heaven and the Patriots at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you get to this point where toward the end it's like, oh, fuck you. Because you're making so much progress in the game, it's like, oh, you're the fuckwit that keeps screwing things up. You're the one who keeps tipping the balance of power. Because you've actually sort of surpassed what you're supposed to be. So you start getting missions that are supposed to kill you. This is where it factors in, like, oh, you might just not get paid for this. This might just be a trap. And you start getting deliberately trapped, and these missions become like assassination attempts on you. And the final mission of the game, which is fucking unplayable, by the way, if you get there, like, when I streamed this, I recorded that mission ahead of time because I didn't want to make people watch me do it if I couldn't. It's horrible. So, like, the final mission of the game is you get told, like, oh, while you were out, someone planted all of these proximity mines in our base. Can you clean them out? So the final mission actually takes place in your, like, the headquarters of the people that you work for. And, they are just trying to kill you. And then the longer you progress through it, like, assuming you survive, you encounter, like, the guy who is held, he's like when you looked at the rankings, there was a guy at the top called Nineball. Nineball is, like, he's the sort of, like, legendary mercenary who's in charge of the whole thing. He attacks you, and you kill him. And then he attacks you again. Because he's not fucking real.
Oh.
He's actually a computer. And as you progress through it and you beat these 2 copies of the Nineball, you meet the actual thing that's orchestrating everything, and it turns out that actually the mercenaries you work for, there is just an AI running them. And the AI is actually completely defenseless. It's just like, it's kind of like Bed of Chaos. It's just this thing that can't hurt you once you get to it. And the end of the game is like, it's a deliberate sort of anticlimax where this boss, like, it can't defend itself, but it takes a while to kill. So as you're doing it, it's basically just saying, like, think about what you're doing. Think about what this is going to mean if you destabilize everything. And, like, we don't know what's going to happen. We have to keep things as they are. And it just has this ending where it's like, you blow up that computer, you've destroyed the thing that was, like, this AI program that was keeping the society, like, relatively stable. And it's like, what the hell happens next? No one knows. And then it just shows, like, well, I guess we can go to the surface now, and it shows the surface of the Earth. And it's like, everything was thrown into chaos, but we could sort of at least start something else. And that's the ending. And it's so, like, weird. If it's sold to you as, like, mech action game, then it almost becomes like Dark Souls 2 with Aldia, with this whole discussion about, like, what will remain when this is all gone, and you don't ever see it. I mean, there is an Armored Core 2, but at the time you don't see it. And it's like, yeah, so, like, it's just this sort of, it's about, like, systems in a way that, like, Dark Souls really, like, I know Dark Souls is this whole thing about, like, linking the fire and what is a king and everything, but, like, Armored Core is, like, all about that. These, like, sort of coercive systems that, like, yeah, if you, like...
perpetuate themselves
it perpetuates itself.
Expense.
Yeah, like, I think it's, like... I think it's sort of important to contextualize it in terms of when it actually came, like, what had happened in Japan. Because, like, there was a pretty bad, like, economic collapse in Japan in the sort of, like... basically the reason why, like, people like me talk about anime being really good in the 80s and early 90s is that everyone had a whole lot of money, so they could just throw it at making these, like, weird passion projects in Japan. And then there was a crash. There was a massive, like, implosion of the economy, and everything sort of fell apart. And if you look at, like, Japanese cyberpunky stuff from around that time, it's all reflecting that. And I really always see Armored Core as that. It's like, this is this system that we're all being told is, like, this rational, sort of self-maintaining, like, economic homeostasis in which, like, all these corporations are just squabbling with each other, but it's all right because, like, if one gets too big, another one will, like, take its place, it'll collapse. And then that stops working, and then you realize that not only does it not work, but, like, it never actually worked. It was always being coordinated. There was always something behind the curtain pulling the strings to make it look like this was the sort of rational economic system. And then, yeah, the revelation is like, well, it was never rational anyway. It's not even like it was a rational system that failed because of you. It was never rational. And the whole thing just collapses, and it's really, like... it's just really sort of, like, resonant. If you, like... I guess, like, in the West it's different because, like, we had the capacity to sort of, like, brute force if things went wrong. Here we could sort of brute force and force that on other countries, but... yeah, like, I mean, the shadow of Patlabor, I think, looms very large over Armored Core. And that's, like... I guess we'll talk about... You'd never heard of Patlabor?
No.
Patlabor is, like... Patlabor is the only mech show I really like. And the thing is, like, it's not anything like other mech shows, really. I think that's sort of why I like it. It's like this aberration. Because it's not like a space... It's not like Gundam. It's not like a space opera. Gundam, sorry. It's not a Gundam. This is how little I know about Gundam is I don't even say it correctly. It's not like a space opera Gundam thing, and it's not like a super robot Mazinger thing. It's basically like a very low-tech, near-future, kind of like spy espionage detective series set in a world where, like, robots are normal.
Yeah.
And, like, the two Patlabor... Like, the show itself is actually kind of lighthearted, but then the two movies are full-on, like... political thrillers about this, like, how we sort of cope with, like, recession and how we cope with, like, sort of, like, economic changes to our country and what that means. And, like, the look of Armored Core, that, like, because it has this very sort of industrial look to it. Mm-hmm. Like, obviously, you can have a laser if you want, but, like, the defining look of it is, like, it's all rust and rivets and, like, darkness, and the Armored Cores themselves are not actually very big. They're around, like, Like, I'm watching one now, it's standing next to a train, and it's about as tall as the train is. Like, it's not... Yeah. They're not massive, like, huge, like, mech warrior things.
They're not kicking down buildings.
Yeah. They're quite, like... Yeah, so it has this, like, it feels like sort of near-future-ish. Like, it doesn't feel like this is the far future and everyone gets a cool robot. It's like, this is just a tank that happens to have legs. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, like, that is also the aesthetic of Patlabor. Like, Patlabor is like, what if robots were cop cars, basically. Mm. So it's the same like this, like, the mechs are very, like, industrial looking. They're basically forklifts or cars or tanks, and, like, the look is very, like, sort of, like, washed out grey, like, industrial sort of feeling. And I guess, like, I watched them at about the same time. So to me, like, they're always linked in my head, but, like, the aesthetic and the concerns of Patlabor are sort of how Armored Core is. Armored Core goes completely off the rails, though, and becomes, like, about transhumanism and, like, growing, like, cyborgs and stuff toward the end of it, but that's, like... Did you get any... You didn't get Human Plus, did you? I can tell, because you haven't brought it up.
No, I haven't.
Oh, man, Human Plus is so cool. Okay, so... Right, this is what I mean, because, like, you were talking about, I'm going to play Armored Core and we'll talk about it, and I said, it's going to take you a while. And you're like, nah. And I said, you'll miss all the good stuff, and you did. So, throughout the game, you will hear, like, oblique references to people digging and finding old pre-war technology, right? I assume that happened when you were, like, going to the underground bases and stuff?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, probably. Okay, so you'll hear about, like, it looks like...
Sophie, when these blocks of text appear on screen, I just press X as fast as I can. I want to get through that crap.
It's like Dark Souls, you're missing the story if you ignore the text.
There is no story, it's just mechs.
Oh! Oh!
Hey, it's FromSoftware President Hidetaka Miyazaki here to explain the story of Armored Core, which, according to this fucking asshole, apparently doesn't exist. Armored Core was actually the first series I worked on at FromSoftware. I worked on one called Armored Core 4 Aesir. They called it that because it was the sequel to Armored Core 4, which you'd think would be Armored Core 5, but apparently we can't do things normally, so it has to have some kind of 4 pun in the name. I suggested Armored Core forget about it, but they wouldn't let me because at that point I hadn't made them $1 billion. By suggesting that Kingsfield would be more successful if it didn't take you a fucking afternoon to turn around. So, the plot of Armored Core 4 Aesir concerns the extremely subtly named character Maximilian Thermidor, who... Sorry, there's a fucking dimensional portal in my room. Get the fuck out of here, you fucking dimensional portal! What was I talking about? I don't remember, and also it's time for my lunch break. Ooh, they packed onions. Back to the podcast. Onions.
What will happen is you'll gradually learn that, like, hey, all these, like, people who say they're doing scientific surveys are going further underground to, like, old pre-collapse bases and finding old military tech. And the more that you follow them, the more it's like, oh yeah, we're like scientists, but also we're also being sponsored by large companies to do this. And it's like, oh, okay, what are they looking for? And it turns out that, like, very gradually you start realizing that they're starting to use the stuff they find underground to augment people. You start, like, a lot of you'll fight other armored cores, and the pilots will seem to be slightly unhinged. And at the same time, their robots will behave in ways that, like, if you sort of have been paying attention, are breaking the rules. Like, they'll sort of be able to, like, infinitely fly and stuff, and it's like, what the hell? Or they'll be too heavy, technically, to work, and you'll think, what the fuck is this? What's going on? And then they'll start mentioning something called the Plus Project. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that, they're actually scavenging those pre-war bases to find ways to, like, augment people into cyborgs that can fully interface with the armored cores.
I did read something about that.
Yeah. So what if I told you that you can do that and you can actually become a plus experiment person?
What? How?
Yeah. Here's how. This is how, like, deep this goes. Like, this, people think that, like...
This is like a rabbit hole.
This is what I mean. It's like when Dark Souls came out, people were like, oh, fantasy RPG, and then the more they played it, the more like, wait, there's so much going on here. Armored Core is the same thing. The way that you do it is you go bankrupt. If you go bankrupt in Armored Core, they sell your body into medical experimentation. And you get a cutscene of you literally, like, from your perspective in this, like, weird lab. And it's really fucking creepy. You get these, like, cryptic messages about, like, they've done something to you. And then when you start the game again. It's basically New Game Plus. But now, you don't have a name anymore. They've erased your name. You've started over, and you actually will develop, like, different abilities. Like, it'll be like, oh, okay, my name is gone, and, like, I've been wiped from the records, but now, like, my robot can, like, fire shoulder-mounted weapons without me kneeling. Like, it's all this weird shit. And,
Jesus!
your name changes to a number, because it's like, you're now just experiment whatever.
That is so deep!
I know, it's amazing.
You just go bankrupt and they sell you to some medical experiment.
I think it's like negative 50. You can go into the red. Like, you can get to. I think it's negative 25,000 or negative 50,000. You just, like, become a guinea pig in a lab.
Oh my god.
The other interesting thing about the storytelling is, like, if you want to learn more about one of the two factions, you have to side with the other one because they're trying to dig up dirt on each other. And they won't tell you the terrible things they're doing when you're working for them. So if you work for Chrome, you'll learn so much about what Murakumo is doing with this, like, cyborg project, because Chrome want you to, like, sabotage Murakumo, and Murakumo aren't going to tell you, by the way, medical experimentation. And likewise, Murakumo will tell you all the shit about Chrome. Yeah, and, like, when I talk about the path diverging, like, it diverges so much. Like, when you beat the game, it unlocks every mission. Like, you don't really get a New Game Plus, you just get, like, all the missions are now playable infinitely, so you can just play them over and over again. And, I remember the first time I did that, realizing that, like, I have not played half of these. And then, like, playing it again and being like, I don't even know how you unlock these. And not realizing for, like, literal years how you actually got to certain points in the game. It's a very dynamic world. Like, when, like, Chrome falls, it's not like the way I'm describing it, it's not like, oh, Chrome are over now. It's like, no, Chrome are bankrupt, but, like, they still own all this shit. And, like, they're now desperate. So there's literally, like, if you play to a certain point, like, Chrome will go bankrupt and then attempt to reassert control by hijacking a space laser and trying to blow up the planet. And you have to, like, go into, like, Chrome's space station. And there's, like, bits where you're, like, there's, like, orbiting laser cannons and you're inside the barrel of this giant cannon where the barrel is the size of, like, a football field, and you're trying to, like, go along the bottom of this really carefully in case it goes off and to try to sabotage it. Like, there's so much going on in it.
Jesus.
Yeah, and, like, there's parts that you buy, there's also parts you unlock by doing missions, there's parts that you have to find during the missions. Did you get any missions that, like, you didn't even get paid, but you got, like, a part? I think there's one of those.
I got a pair of legs I could use.
Yeah, that's the early one. It's like, yeah, this is a mission, and if you do, like, we'll give you the... And the mission structure is, like, there's weird missions in it. Like, there's... One of the missions is literally just, like, don't die for 2 minutes.
Yep.
That's it. You don't have to kill anything. You just have to dodge missiles for 2 minutes.
The biggest rip-off mission was the one where they went, oh, we want you to come and help us experiment with these new mechs or whatever. And I went in there. I didn't get anything. I lost money on that mission because I had to repair my mech, and I didn't get anything out of that.
Yeah. So, you know, this is another example of the story, like that mech. Like, you gotta, it's called, what is it called? It's got some serial number. It's basically the thing from RoboCop, where they're like, here's the future of law enforcement, it's a giant mech. And you have to fight it, because they want combat data. And then the follow-up to that mission is much later on. You'll fight 3 of them because they want more combat data. And then if Chrome go under, they send them after you. Because they have the combat data from when you were fighting them. so they just drop a bunch of them on you. Like, it's so evil.
What's the story with a giant mech? I was clearing out some underground base, and I went to the surface, and there was this giant monster mech or whatever waiting for me there. What is that?
Yeah. That's like... Because the backstory is there was this massive war, essentially. Yeah. That's why everyone's underground. And, like, that's left over from the war. And it's not fully understood. So there's, like, this giant thing left over from the war, and, like, that's a recurring thing throughout the whole series, that it's like, by the way, like, here's a robot that's like this skyscraper size, like, Godzilla thing that's just left over from the war, and we're going to try to make it, like, we think we should have that. Yeah, and like, 2 is set on Mars.
What?
Armored Core 2 is set on Mars, and it's like, is it 2 or 3? I think it's one of them. No, is it? Hang on, which one's set on Mars? Armored Core 2 and Armored Core 3, like, they look so similar, I get them confused.
They're both PS2 games?
It's on Mars, and, like, there's, like, Martian mechs in it that you, like, dig up. It's like this, like, lost alien technology you gotta fight. It's so, like...
What?
Yeah, but, like... I have it running on another monitor. I'm just watching it, and, like, I remember this. Did you get to the poison swamp that they figure out how to do in a mech game?
I didn't go to a poison swamp. I went to one underground base which had, like, a corrosive acid.
Yeah. That's
that one.
That's Armored Core Blighttown. So
yeah,
they're like,
I hated that.
Yeah, I know. It's great. So they're like, here's like a...
I hated that. Yeah, I know. It's great.
Yeah, and top it is just like, this was before Blighttown. Yeah. It's like, let's have this base is flooded with corrosive acid, like, fog that just eats the mecha, and it's purple like the swamp. And just as long as you're constantly being damaged. And
and you have to break parts of the wall to find the entrances.
Yeah, and the like, walls that you break don't look different to the other walls.
You can find it, though, on, like, the map.
That's a really interesting point, actually, because, like, going into how in-depth it is, did you know the map actually has, like, about 4 or 5 discrete functions that will change based on the head you have equipped?
No? What?
Great. So, like, the head part of the mech defines the kind of map that you're using. But, like, some of them will just not give you a map at all. So that's something. Some of them will give you a map that's only of the surrounding area. And some of them will give you a map that, like, actually records it. So depending on the kind of head you have, like, you can either get a full readout of where you are, or you can get nothing, or you can get something in between. There's also all this weird shit with the heads where, like, some of the heads, if you look at the description, they'll mention something called a biosensor. That comes into play in, like, I think 3 missions. Where you'll have to fight those bug things. The termites from Kingsfield Shop. Only some heads can actually target those. Because they're not a mechanical creature, so it doesn't have a heat signature. So unless you have a head that is specifically designed around searching for, like, biological signs, you can't target them.
This is like the Armored Core iceberg over here. It's so deep.
And it's not even the iceberg, it's how the game works.
Yeah.
And, like, there's some missions where, like, they will do, like, radar interference. But some of the heads have radar interference blocking. So it's like just it may completely cripple you and it may not affect you entirely depending on how the build works. Yeah.
You weren't lying when you said I'm gonna miss all the good stuff.
Yeah, you did miss all the... And this is one of... There's 22 other ones.
And they stopped making these for fucking Dark Souls?
Yes, alright, so this is the problem. This is the problem that I face, right? Because the current state of FromSoftware is like a wish I made on a monkey's paw. Where it's like, I made a wish and I wished that FromSoftware were a really popular company and everyone wanted to hear me talk about them. And then it came true, but they stopped making Armored Core games, and they just make dark fantasy RPGs. So it's like, there's so much Armored... Like, it wasn't even just Armored Core that they did. Like, they made... There's an Xbox series called Chrome Hounds that's like... It was Xbox exclusive, and it was also, I think it was online exclusive, so you can't even play it anymore, because it's for, like, a server that doesn't work, but, like...
Fuck that.
Chrome Hounds was, like, it was... Even more low-tech, it was basically building tanks that were, like, slightly futuristic. And they also did, like, Another Century's Episode, which is, that's a, like, space opera-y one, and there was, like, Frame Gride, which no one remembers. Because it's... People are like, I wish From would, like, imagine if they combined Armored Core with Dark Souls. Like, they did! It was on Dreamcast. It was called Frame Gride. It was, like, literally... mechs with swords and shields fighting each other.
Is this why you were talking to me that you hoped that Elden Ring will have different arms equipable?
Yes.
Oh.
Also, Frame Gride is one-on-one fighting. Like it's the Armored Core interface, but it's entirely like arena based, but also the mechs are like pseudo medieval looking.
Hello, everybody. We're halfway through the podcast, and I have a message from Thin, who wants to remind you all to please stretch and stay hydrated. I also have a message from Thin to her boyfriend, but there's a lot of bad language in it, so I'll just give you the gist, which is that she's stuck in another dimension, she's not enjoying it very much, and she wants some avocado sushi as soon as possible. Back to the podcast.
So the From, like, successes, it's this, like, blessing/curse thing where, like, I'm very happy that they're getting recognition, I'm very happy they're doing these things, they're doing them very well, but, like, if you look at what From were doing in the 90s and the 2000s, it's, like, it's Armored Core and Kingsfield, which were basically the tentpoles. Like, Armored Core was basically what they were known for in the West for so long. They were like the Armored Core company. Also Kingsfield. And then like Kingsfield derivative things like Eternal Ring and Shadow Tower. But then also like Evergrace, which is like a Zelda thing. They were doing Lost Kingdoms, which is a card-based fighting game. There was like Ninja Blade, which is like character action. There was Otogi, which is character action again.
Kuon, which is like a survival horror.
Yeah. Echo Knight, which they like made a bunch of. They made 3, but like the third Echo Knight game is in space. They would like Cookie and Cream, 3D.
That's another
Game
thing
Heroes.
about their old sequels too. It's like Kingsfield 1 and Kingsfield 2. These are radically different games. And then Kingsfield 3, that's like, no, let's go open. Like, Kingsfield 2 is like this Metroidvania dungeon. Kingsfield 3 just goes open world.
Completely
Kingsfield
open.
4 goes back to, like, hardcore, like, dungeon crawling. Shadow Tower 1 and Shadow Tower Abyss, like, one of them has you equipping up. Like, one of them is a medieval dark fantasy dungeon crawler. The other one gives you machine guns and, like, hats and bulletproof vests.
Yeah.
And it's like, just the range with which they express these different franchises.
Yeah. And even like Armored Core basically stayed the same, except when Miyazaki, it wasn't really entirely Miyazaki's doing, because this happened with Armored Core 4. But like Miyazaki, this is what we talk about with there being these different like numbered series also having their own series. So like Miyazaki came on board for Armored Core 4 Answer, and that is a pun on 4. Because it's like Armored Core 4, and then the follow-up to Armored Core 4 was Armored Core 4 Answer.
Okay.
So, like, Armored Core 4 was sort of established, like, the game style when he took over, but, like, Armored Core 4 is fast. Like, they stopped, like, Armored Cores 1 through 3, they handle like tanks basically. Even if you're playing like one with legs, it's a tank that happens to have legs. It's not that fast.
Just
Armored Core
quickly,
4, yeah.
Just quickly, like I said earlier, I'm the zippy energy build.
Yeah.
I'm still like struggling to just turn to the side.
Yeah.
So I have to like constantly...
Because it's the fucking Kingsfield engine.
Yeah, because so I have to do these booster jumps backwards and then just turn to the sides because it's easier. But keep going.
Yeah, so like 4 is fast, and like 4 answer is even faster. And like that's sort of what they did with like they made it like they made it more sort of arcadey. They took out a lot of the like very, very obsessive levels of customization and became sort of like Armored Core 4 answer, like I have a friend who's really into it, like much more than I am, and she was describing it to me as like the duels in Armored Core 4 answer are kind of like it's like a dogfight between aircraft because you're going so quickly that you're like zooming and then you'll like pass each other for a split second and that's when the fighting happens and you'll zoom off again. Because like you can basically fly infinitely, like in 4 and 4 answer, like it's so like fast. And again, like going back, like the way they make it, this is my friend Talia's observation on it, but like she said, like it's so fast and it would be weightless if it wasn't for the sound design, because the sound design makes it sound like all the metal in the robot is about to fall apart because it's going so quickly. There's this constant like whining, like ripping noise as you're moving. And it's like, it's so like, it's, yeah. Armored Core 4 answer is basically like, that is to baseline Armored Core what like Bloodborne speed combat was to Dark Souls. It's kind of like that sort of difference.
Huh.
But even more like, you could always go you could always go very fast in Armored Core in a straight line. That's something they introduce into is called overboosting, where like, if your boost gauge is entirely full and you can hit a button that just makes your boosters like open and you just go insanely quickly directly forward.
Yeah.
But then like, so it has a very odd, like you were talking about, like I'm very fast but I can't turn around. That's sort of what it's like you can move very quickly in a straight line but you can't turn very well. So it has a very interesting like feel to it. Yeah. And like part of the reason the final mission is unplayable dog shit is that like it's worse than it. If you think Lost Izalith is the worst thing From made, Destroy Floating Mines is a nightmare because Destroy Floating Mines.
Would you recommend that I break my rule and I do save states for that mission? Okay. Yes,
because what Destroy Floating Mines is, it is 2 incredibly long vertical platforming sections. And the platforms are moving.
No.
And and it gets worse. The platforms have guns on them. They don't do very much damage, but if they hit you, you'll be knocked off the platform.
Okay, I'll have to buy that upgrade that lessens knockback.
Oh god. It is like, if you imagine like a Mario 64 level with this like moving platforms everywhere, but with Armored Core controls and just like guns shooting you, and you have to fight Nineball twice.
Ugh.
And like, it's this ridiculously long shaft where if you fall off, you can fall for like close to a minute before you hit the ground and then just have to go all the way back up again. It's ridiculous.
There's no fall damage though.
No. It's the one. They actually pay it off because the villain of Armored Core 2 is you from Armored Core 1.
Oh.
That's who it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like it's the same guy. So canonically, I guess in Armored Core 1, you're a guy called Leos Klein. But whatever. And yeah, when you actually go to confront him, he covers his area in the same mines that they do at the end of Armored Core 1. So like he remembers what he had to go through, and that's how he defends himself. Yeah.
Leos Klein.
It's such a good, like, anime mercenary name.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, and I'm in a situation where, like, this was my favorite series growing up, but because of, like, NTSC and PAL, I think, like, only about half of them actually made it into a format I could play them in, so a lot of the spin-offs I know, like, the core series all came out here, but, like, a lot of the spin-offs we didn't get, and
you can emulate those.
I can emulate them, but it's not the same. Also, my computer's a piece of shit. It can barely do a PS2.
Wait a minute, you do like Bloodborne data mining, don't you?
Yeah, but that doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be 60 FPS.
Oh, that's true. Wait, this game renders at 60 FPS?
Not this one. This one barely scratches like double digits.
Yeah,
it's very
I was
slow.
gonna
But like
say.
the later ones are pretty smooth.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you find the moonlight? Did you find the moonlight in Armored Core?
I didn't. Where is it? Is it in one of the missions?
Yeah, this is like I don't even know if you did this mission, but like there's one that when you start it, you think, is this a rejected level from Kingsfield, where it's like this weird like temple?
No, I must have missed it.
It's like this very long stone passages, and like the hazards are like things that shoot fireballs out of the walls. Like it looks like something from Kingsfield.
It's probably just that beginning level from Kingsfield.
It might be, for all we know. And it even says like they're hiding in the ancient ruins. It's where you have to kill the leader of a terrorist group called Struggle, which is a great name for a terrorist group. One of the terrorist groups is called Dark Soul, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that level.
Yeah, they stole a bunch of tanks. So in the level that looks like it's Kingsfield, part of the floor in one of the areas, if you blow it open, you fall for like seemingly forever into this abyss. And then at the very base of it, there's this like weird idol, and if you go and examine the idol, it's got the moonlight on it. And you get the moonlight greatsword in Armored Core, and it's like a laser blade thing, and it's got like max damage. It's like 999 damage.
Mm-hmm.
If you slash with it, it'll pretty much one shot anything. But yeah, like that was because I played this before Kingsfield, so that was actually my introduction to the moonlight. Was Armored Core.
Huh.
I have very, 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 very distinct memories of that because, like, again, 3D platforming in Armored Core, bad. And you have to climb out of this abyss once you get the moonlight. So I have this, like, very, very vivid memory of, like, falling down there and having to climb up. And this was, like... It was, like, a school night. So I was, like, up listening to the radio. And I just remember, like, it was a local radio and the two hosts had a big fight over, like, one of their football teams losing and one of them stormed out. So, like, my memory is that fight playing over me trying to climb out of this stupid hole and not knowing why the moonlight is important.
Can I ask you about the hole?
Yeah.
Was it red colored?
No, it's like it's like a... I've streamed Armored Core twice, and, like, I always make sure to show that part off. Problem is, I still can't remember which part of the floor collapses, because it all looks the same.
I was just wondering, because that's where you get it in Kingsfield 1. By the way,
Yeah.
Kingsfield 3 has the dungeon from Kingsfield 1 in it.
Yeah.
It's, like, right next to the castle, and you can go into it, and you finish, like, the first area, the first level. Kingsfield 1 has 5 levels.
Yeah.
Kingsfield 3 has the first level from Kingsfield 1. It
Right.
shrinks it a little bit, and there's a boss at the end of it. And when you kill it, you're immediately transported to the bottom level, where you fought Reinhardt III, the villain from Kingsfield 1.
Right.
And so on that bottom level in the original Kingsfield was
Yeah.
an astral projection of Gyra, who created the Moonlight Sword. In Kingsfield 3, you go there, and Gyra's lingering form still exists, and it will take the broken pieces of the Moonlight Sword and rebuild it. But the thing is, Gyra, it's just like this Cthulhu Elder God monster that has like one
Yeah.
eye, and it's like just this... It's just insane. Like, the old FromSoft used to go places.
yeah. No, but it's like when Bloodborne happened, and they were like, oh my god, you think it's fantasy, but it's actually Eldritch Cosmic Horror, and, like, they've done Eldritch Cosmic Horror, like, 5 times. Including
Yeah.
Demon Souls. Like,
Yeah.
Shadow Tower's got Nyarlathotep just in it. He's just there.
Yeah, like those little worm guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, that's the point of Shadow Tower Abyss. Like, the revelation is that, spoiler alert, it's a spaceship. It's like it's like an alien monster from a different planet.
Yes. Kingsfield 2 has, like... What the fuck is the ending of that? It's like the robot... Okay,
Tron?
so you're the Kingsfield expert here. My experience at the end of Kingsfield 2 was, like,
Are you talking about Kingsfield 2 US or Japan?
The one that was just called Kingsfield in
the West.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah.
The one that has the octopus near the beginning.
Yes, my friend.
Yeah, okay.
I almost bought there's a Redbubble shirt with an octopus on it, and I almost bought it. We'll get it next time. Patreon.com. So, like...
/ Sinclair lore.
But, like... the end of Kingsfield, right, is I'm fighting monsters I've fought before, and when I use the mirror thing on them, it says that parts of them have been replaced with mechanical parts. And then I end up in Tron.
Yep.
And then they talk at the start about, like, a great light landed here in the past, and I'm like, is this some ancient aliens shit where, like, Melanat Island is actually built on top of a spaceship, and that's where I'm going, and that's why it's like... It's like... I'm in, like, someone from the 1990s idea of what hacking would be like, where it's all these, like, weird, like, glowing corridors.
And they're like little silver termites?
Yeah, and it's like, oh, the termites have become mechanical, and I'm like, when did this happen? Like, that's the end of fucking Kingsfield. Like, Bloodborne is normal. Bloodborne, like, seeds that shit from the beginning. Like, if you...
Yeah. Well, it's Kingsfield is very difficult because every game retcons every other game. Yeah, like every game. I think the Japanese name is more like King's Land or something like that. I don't know, but like every one of them retcons the other, and then they released like the Verdite narrative or like some CD with one of the game that retells the entire story, and there it's just like straight on fantasy about like two gods fucked off, and the final god had to take care of the world by himself. And he split himself into two dragons, that's Seath and Gyra, who are like the antagonist forces of that universe. But it's like, it's... FromSoft used to go places. Yeah. I want everybody to join our petition to make Bloodborne 2 a Mac game.
That's true. We we talked about this a little bit.
A little
together.
bit?
This is something I've brought up before. Before I met you, everyone was like, "Do you think there should be a Bloodborne 2?" And I got really sick of answering it. And then I'm like, From did this. From have their own answer built in, which is Echo Knight Beyond. Because Echo Knight was like a sort of like turn of the century set, like adventure game. If you look at it, you can kind of see, oh, is this where like this is a bit Bergenworth, like this like sort of like university and like the hospital and everything. And it's like, okay, this is where their like kind of steampunk Victorian thing came from. Only like they genuinely seem interested in like Victoriana rather than like
the aesthetics.
Rather than just... I think this to me is why Bloodborne not having trains is important. Because if you were doing, like, it's steampunk, there should be trains, tick. No, it doesn't, because it's not trying to do, like, here's the steampunk checklist. It's like, we're interested in what this means, and part of what it means is actually isolation and being xenophobic. And, like, being closed off. So trains would not make sense. And I feel like a lesser studio handling the same material would have been tempted to put, like, trains and airships and stuff in it, but it didn't.
That being said, like, train tracks underground leading to old Sumerian chalice dungeons.
Well, Derasene has train tracks, but it makes a bit more sense, though.
You make a good point that world-building-wise, trains wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, because I feel like that's like the appeal of, like, Bloodborne to me, is, like, everything that's in it. Like, on the surface, it looks like this is a checklist of things nerds like. So it's like werewolves, vampires, Lovecraft, steampunk, top hats, like sexy vampire lady of ambiguous sexuality, like
sexy doll lady,
sexy doll. Yeah, but like
an old man in a wheelchair.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know a lot of people who are very into that particular old man, but we can't talk about it because YouTube would unlist the video. And but the thing is, like, every single one of those things has a very, very specific purpose, and it is articulating a very, very specific idea. It's not just there.
Yeah,
like it's like they came up with a story and picked those things because they belong in it. It's not like they came up with that aesthetic and then tried to justify it later. But anyway, like I was saying, Echo Knight is it's sort of a similar like setting. It's not as fantasy-ish, but it's like sort of like turn of the century, like mansions and like universities and stuff, and like sort of linked to stuff happening in the past. Like there's a ghost that looks pretty much exactly like Logarius in it, and like, you know, connecting with like after images of people and stuff. And they do it twice. And it's like, okay, I think after the 2 times you've done it, you've kind of like exhausted what you wanted to do with this premise. But they make Echo Knight Beyond. And the way they do Echo Knight Beyond is, now it's in space. You are on a space station, like dealing with like, it's like an adventure game without like combat and stuff, but you're also dealing with like the ghosts of dead people on a space station. And they sort of, they justify it all by...
Does it have the same sort of spiritual
yeah, it's
identity,
the same.
like...
It's not only it's the same world, you're playing as like the great-great-grandson of the character. It's just like...
Huh.
Like hundreds of years in the future, like this family is still dealing with this shit, but
so
it's in space.
It's like a Victorian ghost story on a spaceship.
Essentially, yeah. It's kind of like, it's a bit like System Shock-ish with like more like a horror sort of survival thing rather than the adventure stuff. But like, what I was thinking about Bloodborne is like, alright, if there had to be a Bloodborne 2, you'd do that. You'd be like, it's just really far in the future now, so all the stuff that we dealt with the first time, like, we're not going to go back to it because you did everything you wanted to do with it.
Mm.
Like, I think it's done everything that it could possibly do with, like... if you go back to it, you would cheapen it.
Yeah, like, on one hand, you could just do it again, which is not interesting. You could escalate it dramatically, in which case you sort of undermine, like, the original, or you can do something different.
Yeah, because, like... Again, if you look at Bloodborne as a sequel to Demon's Souls... Which, like, even if you don't literally think that, I think, like, spiritually it still is. It's a continuation. Yeah. Like, what does that do? Well, okay, if you say Demon's Souls is, like, 14th century, Bloodborne is the 19th century. So it's like you just moved it ahead. And you actually continued, like, the same, like... You sort of continued, like, the same world with a different set of concerns. Because, like, Demon's Souls is, like... There's a little bit of stuff about, like... They talk about the old one, like, crying like a child and things, and, like... The idea of, like, you know, it's a fantasy universe that you think you know, but, like, underlying it is this, like, cosmic horror thing that's,
Yeah.
Like, and all the fantasies, like, this is the thing about, like, Demon's Souls and Bloodborne and why I like them more than Dark Souls, is that both those, they're fantasy horror stories, but, like, they are normal worlds. Like, they are, like, historically sort of, like, there's one foot in reality the whole time. And then all the fantasy stuff is something that went wrong. Like, Boletaria, like, without demons in it, is just, like, this is a place that it's just, like, a piece of historical fiction. Yeah. Yharnam without, like, the vampire stuff is like, it's based on Prague. It's like, this is a real place. Yeah. And then the blood and, like, the souls and everything warp that into something else. Yeah. So I feel like, if you were going to do the sequel to Bloodborne, you just move it another 500 years. So now it's, like, the 25th century, 24th century, and you just do like a mech game or like cyberpunk game, and then you just say like, okay, well, we're just picking up, like, this is like future Yharnam, but that's not really the point, and that's not like, we'll keep some of it, but we won't make it like literally like just DLC.
No, it can still be like the tech overlords are these out-of-touch 300-year-old vampires. But, like... So I've said something about Lovecraft. I think I was during some podcast once. And this is something I genuinely believe, but it's not a... If you just say it, you can sound... It sounds really bad when you just say it, but there's an actual thing to think about here, which is that the racism of Lovecraft's writings is really integral to, like, the world he builds.
Oh, absolutely.
And like, subsequent Lovecraft works, which wisely do away with the racism, they're lacking that sort of social paranoia, because the point wasn't, like, like the racism, it's because Lovecraft was a racist, but like it imbued his worlds with such like just this incredible, like I said, social paranoia, and these characters are also isolated from each other.
He's terrified of like things not having set boundaries.
Yeah.
And the idea of like miscegenation is an example of that. Like he doesn't like the idea of like things becoming impure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like I feel like there's still people still write in that tradition. They're just not doing pastiche.
I feel like so much of post-Lovecraft either does away with the racism and doesn't do social paranoia anywhere else, or they try to make like a meta-narrative about the racism, in which case there's one book I read in which I don't remember what it's called, but it basically ends with like the main character, he decides to do a deal with Cthulhu, I believe, because he was so disgusted by like the racism of his fellow men, like the prejudices he had to feel.
Right. Yeah.
He was made to subjugated to, and I always feel like that is an interesting angle, but at the same time, Lovecraft to me is so much about this guy who is just like almost a germaphobe. He is so disconnected from like the touch of another human being.
Well, this is like there's two sort of parts to that, because like I remember there being an article in Eurogamer a while ago that was like, stop doing Lovecraft entirely because he was racist and we don't want to have to keep revisiting this. But like everything that is racist about Lovecraft pretty much is also in like Dracula.
Yeah.
And we don't say that everyone who is doing vampire stories agrees with it, like Bram Stoker's like fear of like East European aristocrats. No. Lovecraft, like arguably he's not necessarily like 100% in agreement with himself a lot of the time about this. Like you can even like you can read Shadow over Innsmouth as just like a straightforward like horror story about like, oh shit, I'm actually a fish. But like there's this aspect to it that's like, well, he does also sort of accept that. So you can read it in like almost a positive way if you wanted to. But like Bloodborne just sort of takes that potential like positive thing and runs with it, because it's like the way in which like you find enlightenment and you transcend in Bloodborne is the stuff that in Lovecraft drives you mad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the loss of the things that like Lovecraft's paranoid about losing is still there, and it's still the focus. Mm-hmm. But like losing it is actually like you that's how you transcend. That's how you move on. That's what you do. And like to like avoid that is to become a beast. But at the same time, like, well, the beasts are also kind of sympathetic. So it's just sort of like recasting it. It's not actually attempting to like
clean it up.
Yeah, it's like, well, no, this, and even like the DLC is like, it's Shadow over Innsmouth. It's also like, that's how colonialism works as well. And it's not like, it's not necessarily like a big like anti-colonial sort of like statement as much. It's just like, this is a thing that happens and it's terrible.
Yeah. And that's also present in Demon Souls.
Yeah.
Like this, the Dreckling merchant talks about how like, yeah, the beasts are in charge, but my life is the same.
I love that guy. That guy's cool. That guy's like the hero of the proletariat. Because he's like, no, but he's right. Because like he says, well, okay, like Boletaria, this is an important thing about like Demon Souls in general, is that there's three major like Boletarian figures who you talk to, which are like Ostrava, Bior, and the Merchant. And they all
have these different views of what it actually is.
Yeah, they all have a different view, but none of them are lying. It's not like this is the dishonest person about Boletaria. It's like, no, this is just Boletaria looks... If you're the Prince of Boletaria, it looks this way. If you're a Knight of Boletaria, it looks this way. If you're a commoner, it looks this way. And there's... Yeah, that's what Boletaria is. It's not one thing. It's not like, this is the truth, because they're all telling the truth.
Mm-hmm. That's why I really like Alant's dialogue at the end, where he goes like... haven't you seen how miserable this fucking world is? That's why the old one was created, so that we could just get rid of it and start over with something better.
Yeah.
He's like, it's like, I can't exactly disagree with him either, because
Yeah.
I have seen how, like, the Valley of Defilement predates all this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah.
And like, again, like actually, the end of Armored Core is very similar to Alant, where it's like this thing that can't really defend itself. And it's sort of the opposite. It's like you've seen how rotten the world is, but like, do you want it to get worse? Basically, we can't risk this thing getting worse. But yeah, like anyway, back to like Bloodborne 2, the space memories.
That's a shit title.
There's a game called Hideline 3 The Space Memories that I temporarily forgot what it was called. So Bloodborne Demon Souls 3 The Space Memories.
We called it Rusty Gear. Rusty Gear.
I guess like one of the things that appeals to me is like I don't know what it's like physically looks like where you live, but like where I live it's a town that was built in the 19th century. And then over time, like, newer stuff's been built over the top of it. So you have, like, places that kind of actually look like Yharnam, where I live. But then they'll just have, like, heating ducts sticking out of them.
Yeah.
Or, like LED lights on the front or something like that. And
it's just, like, the horrible juxtaposition.
It's an interesting aesthetic for me. It's like Blade Runner is good. So if you look at Blade Runner, like, it's Los Angeles 2097, but they make a huge point of, like, it's 2097, like, 2007, 2017, 2019. 2097 is a video game I used to play. Blade Runner is like, okay, this is hypothetical Los Angeles 2019. And, it's like, it looks like Los Angeles. Like, the buildings are where you would expect them to be. It's the same buildings. They've just built over the top of them.
Yeah.
So it feels like it's in the same way that, like, Yharnam feels like it grew out of the Chalice dungeons. You can see, like, there's this architectural continuity across it. So I feel like having an old, like, Gothic city with, like, bits and pieces of technology stuck to it in a way that, like, that would be an interesting... That's kind of what Warhammer 40,000 does, but, like, I feel like it could be lower sort of key than that.
Yeah, I pitched an idea to you. I didn't know where you sat on it.
I'm going to pitch it to me like I'm going to... No, I'm not funding it.
No, the idea was that the mechs were very specifically like Victorian design. Where like it's still Armored Core where you're swapping out like the head part or whatever, but it's like the head isn't just like this metallic box. It's like the head of this statue.
Right, yeah.
And like maybe one of the arms you can equip is like from an amygdala. That's sort of been rehabilitated with, like, biomechanics or whatever. And
I said it should start looking like Armored Core and become that.
Oh, yeah! Like, the deeper down you go.
I like this is my idea. Like, I would have it, like, it starts off seeming like science fiction-y. And then, like Bloodborne, you would come into contact with, like, something that was sort of irrational and impenetrable.
Yeah.
And there's no way to scientifically grapple with it in a way that, like, makes sense. So that starts being reflected in the designs. Like, you have the robot, but you're starting to, like, you paint rune. There's some enemy that you, like, the only way to fight it is to, like, paint runes on the side of the robot or something like that. Or, there's something that will, like, target you, but unless you, like, have, like, a fetish, like a skull or something hanging from and eventually the robot just becomes this weird, like, culmination of, like...
Yeah. one of the equipable heads is just, like, the skull from a giant beast.
Yeah.
I just had... Sin has those visions. What does he call them?
Visions.
Okay, I had
I just had a vision.
I just had the vision, comrade. So you talked about how you want it to be like a survival horror game.
Well, it doesn't exist. This is the major issue. We're not actually making this.
No, we're gonna make this, people.
Oh, fucking fine. Yeah, no,
Patreon.com/Sinclair lore.
No, but okay, this was my suggestion. This has nothing to do with Armored Core. I just always thought it would be a cool system. Is if you had, like, a mech game where, like, the mech itself basically couldn't be damaged. Like, it's a giant hunk of metal, something you can do to it. But the pilot is what's vulnerable. So it's almost kind of like Sekiro, where, like, what happens is instead of you having, I know you have a health bar in Sekiro, but instead of being like, oh, my, like, Armored Core armor is degrading, it was 9,000 and now it's 7,000, you have it, like, set up, so it's nothing to do with that, it's to do with, like, you're gradually becoming compromised in some way.
Or
so
maybe just it's overheating.
Yeah,
like
something
you
like...
You take damage and it just overheats, and then it just has to freeze and cool down for a bit.
Well, my idea... Yeah, or just... I was thinking, like, if you look at the way, like, people fight tanks in real life, like, the guys with guns shooting the tanks are, like, basically trying to suppress them, whereas people will run up and just, like, hurl a grenade, like stick it to the tank and blow it up that way. So that was sort of what I was thinking, that, like, you're actually just trying to avoid, like, sort of critical hits to the mech. So, like, maybe, like, you can sort of, like... There'll be, like enemies that could get close to you and basically, like, do the equivalent of a backstab or something to you, and that's what you actually have to worry about.
And because you're a giant mech, you don't have, like, the finesse to take them out.
Yeah, or something, or just, like, you know, like, if they do something, like, if they overload the CPU on the mech and it just freezes in place.
Yeah.
Like, to me, like, because that is, like, that's scary to me, is, like, if I'm, like, cool robot dude, and then suddenly, like, I get hit with something and it just freezes and it can't move and everything's moving toward me.
We can do another one, which is, like, unless you have, like, visible exposure to the skyline, your GPS is just fucked.
Yes, things like that, that going back to Patlabor. My love of Patlabor. Because Patlabor, the second Patlabor movie is entirely about that. It's about how, like, the pilot is, like, the way in which you engage with, like, a combat situation is mediated through all these layers of technology that can fail in different ways.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, if you imagine you're in a mech and you're targeting things, then suddenly someone just fucks with the targeter. That's actually really scary, because you don't know where anything is anymore. And I feel like, going back to, like, Lovecraft's fear of, like, boundaries becoming permeable, like, I can't think of a better, like... I probably could think of a better one if I had more time, but, like, I just like the idea of that as almost, like, that's a horrifying thing, that, like, I have this invincible suit of metal around me and nothing can hurt me. And then suddenly, if that stops working, it's the scariest thing imaginable.
Do you want to hear what my vision was? Sure. Because we're pitching it as a Bloodborne 2. So
who are we pitching this to?
We're pitching this to the people. To the people. Sophie, oh my god.
Oh god. Thank you, Sin.
My idea was basically that the pilot, instead of being in, like, a seat, they're in, like, a tanker, like a little water tank, and they just have wires sticking to them.
Yeah.
And I want you to go, like, at, like, the mid-game, you uncover a mech that some company created in some secret experiment, and maybe like, you're inside the mech, and then when it overheats or whatever, like, the mech freezes, and the tanker is just pushed up to the surface to, like, keep you from overheating in the tank.
Yeah.
And you have to do that to the other mech, and it freezes and pushes a tanker out, and it has, like, some cosmic eldritch horror monster, like maybe the body of Kos or something is just connected into it, and it's like, what have you done to this majestic god? You absolute monsters.
That's very, like, Evangelion. No, but, like, I really like the idea of, like, combat based around making the pilot vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because if you imagine, like, the way Sekiro works, where you're like parry, deflect, and then suddenly they're open and there's that stab.
Mm.
If you imagine, like, two robots fighting and then suddenly, like, one of them is, like, stopped, and then what you do is, instead of, like, I'm just going to keep shooting the robot till it dies, they, like, punch the fist, like, right through the, like, the torso of the thing, and presumably the pilot is, like, reduced to dog food when that happens. Yeah. Like, I think that would be really cool, because I like the idea of just, like, the pilot being really fucking vulnerable and that being potentially scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also pitched that it would have, like, all the pilots would be really anemic, because maybe they don't have, like, wires attached to them in the water tanker. Maybe they just have, like, what do they call them? Like, just have, like, syringes in their arms, and their blood is fueling the mech.
Yeah, this is getting very, like, Warhammer. Every time you brought something up, I would send you, like, a 40k model and be like, you've just basically just... Where it's like, here's a robot that's piloted by a corpse.
What?
The like standard like walker mechs in 40k, they're actually a sarcophagus that they stick arms and legs on. That's true. Because like it's like if someone's mortally wounded, it's like hook them to a life support system, put them in the sarcophagus. Most of the time they'll be in a crypt, but when we need them, we'll pull the sarcophagus out and stick it to an exoskeleton. Yeah.
And yeah, like our pilots, they're all under the back and heel of, like I said earlier, these 300-year-old vampire aristocrats that live on the highlight of Neo Yarnum 2328 or whatever.
We were talking about that, and I was talking about how, like, if you look at sort of like early internet theorists from like well before like the 80s and 90s, but well maybe the 80s, but like the way that sort of led into this like sort of transhumanist obsession that comes out of like tech bro types, where it's like we're actually just it's like we're STEM lords who are obsessed with technology, but also we believe that like something that's effectively a soul could be taken out of your body and you could just live forever, like somehow. Like sort of altered carbon style. So like that is like essentially what Willem is trying to do. It's this like transcendence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like even like the idea of like what if the universe had no, like, everything's actually, like, according to the whim of, like, these sort of cosmic entities. Like, if you're, like, an Armored Core character and all you care about is money, that's actually pretty good. If you think about it. Like, if you think about the universe as, like, a completely irrational, like, cold and hateful place where, like, there is no morality. If you're someone who just wants to, like, destroy the whole world because nothing matters. Like, well, that's actually kind of, like, useful in a way. Because, like, well, okay, nothing's sacred, it doesn't matter. If that makes sense. Like...
Yeah, I could just get paid. It's all, like,
well, yeah,
so long as I
it
get
doesn't
paid.
matter. So, like, if everything is just, like... If everything is sort of, like, chaotic and meaningless, and there's no meaning to existence, and humans are basically irrelevant, then it's like, well, alright, that actually works really well if you're a complete scumbag. Because it's like, this is actually the best universe for me, because I can murder my own employees, it doesn't matter. Because, like, who cares? There's no morality, there's no God.
Yeah.
No one will judge me.
Do you think we should split this video in two? One is Armored Core talk, the other one just called Pitching Bloodborne 2? Armored Core style?
No, because people will think Bloodborne 2 is a serious project rather than what we're actually working on.
I am serious
this. You are making a game about in a swamp with no fighting. I am making a junk scavenging Mega Man Legends ripoff.
We will meet halfway through.
When both these games are finished in roughly 2038.
Okay.
We will collaborate on Bloodborne 2. It's not out yet.
If it's not out yet. I think... Do you by any chance know Shuhei Yoshida, or Herman Holst, or Mark Cerny?
No, they don't ring a bell. No.
If any one of those guys is watching this video, they're like the bigwigs at Sony, please message me.
I like how that almost sounded serious. Yeah, if a CEO of Sony is watching Sinclair Law.
Yeah.
They're a big fan of Hats of Bloodborne. Actually, multiple people who work on Elden Ring do watch this, and I'm very, very sorry.
Hi, team!
Oh, Sin's back.
Sin is back!
My boyfriend picked me up from the portal!
Oh, that's good of him.
Did you catch any of that Armored Core talk we did?
Absolutely not! Sophie, do the outro.
That was the snack oven in episode 275, Armored Core with Aesir. I can't remember what we said because it was recorded some time ago. And we're now doing it due to the time disturbance caused by the portal, that's what I'll say.
And Aesir, if people want to find you on social media, where would they look for you?
AesirAesthetics on YouTube and the Twitter.
Follow me for some epic gamer memes.
So, thank you, Sophie.
Thank you, Sin.
Thank you, Aesir.
Thank you, Sin. Very cool.
Thank you, Jersey Miyazaki.
Whatever.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. And see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Whatever.